me. My name is Tressa Thompson. I'm the ombudswoman with the Department of Motor Vehicles, senior driver ombudswoman to be exact. And our program was generated or started after that Santa Monica incident many years ago. Some of you may have heard of, where the senior driver drove through Santa Monica Farmers Market. There were a lot of fatalities and injuries after that incident. And so the director of the department at that time wanted to have something in place for our largest group of drivers, which are our seniors. And so that's what we're here for. We are a go-between for you and the Department of Motor Vehicles. So if you have issues, concerns, complaints, or just questions, regarding our processes, or if you're going through something with your driving privileges, that's what I'm here for. I don't have the magic wand to wave to get rid of certain things or requirements, but I'm here to hopefully, put you at ease, to let you know what the processes are and how to be prepared. Okay, so I wanted to come to you today and just speak with you a little bit about what we're doing in the wake of COVID. I know we're all tired of hearing about COVID, but it is important to know how some of these agencies are operating through COVID, because DMV is an agency that's necessary and needed for your identification and of course vehicle registration. Okay, so first off, there are some changes. Generally, when you're 70 or older at the time of your license expiration, you are required to come into a DMV office to renew the license, and you would have to submit to the written and the vision test. Because of COVID, there is a special provision that the governor has proposed. And so if your license has expired from March of 2020 throughout this COVID emergency, which currently we are still declared to be in the COVID emergency, you do not have to come into the office to renew your license if you're 70 and older. You are being allowed to renew the license online or by mail. The tests are waived, meaning the written and the vision test requirement is not something that we're doing at this time. Okay, so I know that your notice that you get in the mail, your renewal notice, is going to say, hey, you're going to have to come in and you have to take the knowledge test and the vision test. Those notices have been pre-printed, of course, prior to COVID. And that generally was what we were doing. However, the special provision is that you can renew online or by mail. So we've developed some technology on our website so that seniors 70 and older are allowed to renew online. The only time you generally don't qualify to renew online or by mail is if you have a vision condition. So if you have something going on with your vision that's documented with the department, and how would you already know this? If you are submitting a vision form from your eye doctor to renew your license, then that would be an indication that you have a vision issue. And then you would not be qualified to renew online or by mail, because we would need to get that vision form completed by your doctor regarding your diagnosis, the treatment plan, and if your condition is progressive, and of course, what the clinical measurement readings are, for your vision. Okay, but anyone else, generally, good driving record, you can renew online or by mail. Let me just stop for a moment and ask, are there any questions regarding that process? So I want to make sure I'm clear that the knowledge and the vision tests are being waived. Some people will ask me, well, how do I take my test online? How do I do the test through the mail? We're not doing any testing, okay? Vision and written tests are being waived if you're 70 or older. So you go online. It does require you to register or create a profile or an account, as you will, for yourself to do the online process. I say it takes about 30-40 minutes to create the profile and go through the process of renewing the license. And pretty much you're just verifying your information. We always have to give you the motor voter registration. If you're changing or registering, or if you don't want to make any changes, those options are there for you. And then you're going to go into the payment screen. You can pay by electronic check, e-check, debit or credit card. Okay. And you do have to put the transaction in your cart, and then you would be prompted to pay for it. And it's $38 to renew. So it's really as easy as that. In your home to renew the license, they're going to use the picture that they have on record. So hopefully you're in love with that last picture you took at the DMV. And then they will use that photo and then they will mail it to you and you'll get it in about 4 weeks. Okay, so that's how we're working or operating right now due to COVID. Any questions on that? For it, okay.
I have a comment. I did that. And it even came back through with the Real California ID with the little bear with the gold star on it. So I was very pleased with how it all worked out. And I don't like my picture, but actually I'm of age, so I don't have to show it very often anymore. I don't get stopped by police and, whatever. So it's cool. A very, very easy, wonderful operation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for giving us that feedback. Now you indicated that when you did it, you got the gold bear. So that's considered the real ID or the federally compliant driver's license or ID card. Now that requires an in-person visit. If you already have the real ID, the gold bear on your last license, once you get that, it's going to come on the next license. So it does require an in-person visit, just so you'll know. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that because we're going to move into that right now. So real ID is the federally compliant driver's license or identification card. It is not a separate card. It will be your license or your ID card. Okay, the real ID. Real ID was enacted by Congress after the events or the terrorist attacks of 9/11. They wanted all states, it's not just California, it's all states, to have a more secure method by which we are issuing out these identification cards, which includes a driver's license. Some of you that are not driving or that have an identification card, remember, you're not excluded. It can be on your driver's license or your identification card. You choose the card, but you can only have it on one card. So the real ID, just so you can see it, let me kind of cover my info. That's what it's going to look like. That is how you're going to determine if what you have in your wallet is a real ID or not. If it does not have this bright gold bear with the star in there, it is not the real ID. Okay, real ID requires an in-person visit. Everyone see that? Okay, so real ID requires an in-person visit because you are required to bring us some very specific documents for real ID. We have to have what's called an identity document. We only need one identity document. I'm going to just read you a few of those that are more common. It can be an unexpired US passport or passport card. It can be a certified copy of your US birth certificate, or it can be a certificate of naturalization or citizenship. Now, those are not all the documents. We have a flyer that's available on our website, and Mr. April, if necessary, I can forward you that flyer so you'll have it. But those are just a few of the most common documents. We need just one of those. So if you're going to use your birth certificate, don't bring your passport. If you're going to use your passport, don't bring your birth certificate. We just need one, okay? Now, it's very important that we kind of talk about this because this is what I'm noticing with our more mature customers. Sometimes the names are not correct or the birth dates are inappropriate or not reported correctly. You have to get that taken care of before bringing it to the DMV. So if my birth certificate says Tressa Thompson, okay, if that's what's on my birth certificate, but then I say, well, no, they've been calling me Tina for years, and that's what's on my license now, Tina. They're not going to type Tina. They're going to type what's on the birth certificate, Tressa Thompson. If I want my name to be shown as Tina, I'm going to have to go get a name change, a legal name change through the court. Okay. So whatever your name is, sometimes people say, well, my name is Richard on my birth certificate, but I've gone by Rick all of my life. We're going to type Richard, okay? Unless there's a name change or some other document that has been issued to you by a government agency that has Rick. For example, your passport. So if your passport has Rick or Tina, we will take the passport because that is a federally issued document, okay? The U.S. Department of State, which issues the passports, is a federal agency. They've already done the background to make sure Rick and Richard are the same person, Tina and Tressa are the same person. So that's why if you're going to use your birth certificate, we don't question that because remember, this is a federal program, okay? So once you have that document, that satisfies the requirement of an identity document. Now, I just want to go back for 1 second because it gets confusing sometimes for us women. If I'm going to use my birth certificate, okay, I didn't come here married. So on my birth certificate, if it has Thompson as my last name, and I'm going to be using Smith as my married name, I'm going to have to provide a certified copy of my marriage certificate. It's going to show that my name was Tressa Thompson, but it became Tressa Smith because of marriage. Not the marriage license, but the certified copy of the marriage certificate. Okay, one more scenario. If you already have a passport under Tressa Smith, my married name, I will not need to provide a certificate of my marriage because again, the passport is issued by a federal agency and they already know Tressa Thompson, Tressa Smith are the one and the same person. Okay, does that, so far so good? Any questions? We're okay so far? Okay, so next thing is proof of social security number. We will take your social security card, a W-2, or an SSA 1099 form, which is a Social Security Administration 1099. To my understanding, that is a form that is mailed out by Social Security for retired persons. So that should, all of those documents, either the Social Security card, the W-2, or the SSA 1099, those should have your full 9-digit Social Security number. We don't take anything with the numbers blacked out and it only shows the last 4 digits. We have to verify the full 9-digit number, which is why we have specific documents we'll take to verify Social Security. On the Social Security information to verify the number, the Social Security card, the W-2 or the 1099, they must reflect your name that you're using. So I'm going to go back to, if my name was Tressa Thompson before I was married, right? Now it's Tressa Smith, I'm married. And that's the name I'm going to use is Smith. My Social Security information has to have Tressa Smith. I can't present Tressa Thompson. I have to change my name with Social Security. So far, so good? Okay, so that's the same thing for us, for gentlemen. If your name is Richard, but you've gone by Rick, and now you're going to be going by Rick, then your Social Security information has to identify you as Rick. So you have to make sure those things are in line. People say, well, this is such a problem. It's for security purposes. If we think about the tragedy that happened many years ago with 9/11, that is why things, people can't be located and things happen that shouldn't because of things like this. Then it gets very murky in the record. Is Tressa Thompson, Tressa Smith, is Tina Smith, Tressa, it gets all murky. So we need to make sure we have the names correct and the Social Security numbers match those persons, okay? Then the third thing and final thing is proof of California residency. So you would need to present 2 different documents, okay? Official pieces of mail. What's official mail? Home utility bills, any 2 home utility bills, which includes a cell phone bill. It can be medical documents, not a card, but a medical document from your healthcare provider. A car registration, boat registration, we'll take that. Anything from your employer, a document from your employer, insurance documents, bank or financial institution records, a mortgage bill or rental agreement with signatures. So those things qualify as official mail. Any 2 different things in that category we'll accept. Okay, we don't take electronic mail, so you can't come to us and show us your iPad or your phone and say, this is my mail. You have to have it printed. So it has to be in paper form. All of your documents that we just discussed that are required will be scanned and immediately returned to you. We do not keep your documents for any reason. They are scanned and given back to you. So we talked a little bit earlier about how the Real ID requires an in-person visit, right? There is an option on our website, dmv.ca.gov, which allows you to virtually start the Real ID process. It will allow you to scan the necessary documents or the required documents. Then they will get back to you if the documents are acceptable. They will give you an appointment or an access ticket, which is an appointment ticket. And then you take your original documents with that access number or ticket to your local DMV, and it is looked at as an appointment and you will be processed. It gets you kind of like started with the process, so it's less time for you to be at the office. Any questions on Real ID or the process? Ms. Bell, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh.
Does you have to have the Real ID to go to fly nowadays, or is it's coming up the time where
I think it's October.
What?
I think
That is correct.
I think in October it's going to be required.
This October?
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
so real,
starting
on.
in October, it will be required that you have the real ID. When you renew, I don't have to renew my license until 2023.
Two. Yeah.
So I don't need to rush out and get it. I
Unless-
just need to have it by 2023. Is that
Right,
right?
right, so let me go back. So first off, that's a very good question, Ms. Hens. So the Real ID is required for traveling through the airport, visiting a federal building or a military base, October 1st of 2021. That's this year in a few months. That is the requirements of the federal government. Traveling through the airport, okay? That's TSA, that is a federal agency, that's their requirement. Visiting a federal building or military base. That is when Real ID will be required. If you're not doing those things and you don't want the Real ID, you don't have to get it. It is not mandatory. If you have a valid US passport, okay, you can use your passport and you don't have to have the Real ID. As long as you don't mind carrying your passport to travel to Vegas or within the US, domestic flights, then you're fine. You don't have to get it. So in Ms. Bell's case, she said her license doesn't expire till 2023. If she has a passport and she wants to travel before 2023, she can use her passport, perfectly fine, okay? And then in 2023, if she wants to get the Real ID status on her license, she can do that when she renews her license. Okay, now another scenario for Ms. Bell, I'm gonna pick on you for a minute if you don't mind. Okay, another
I'm used
scenario.
to it. I was
Since
married
her-
for years. Go ahead.
Oh, wow. So another thing is if her license is gonna expire, as she said, in 2023, if she wants to go ahead and convert to the Real ID now, she can do that as well. She's gonna do the same process we talked about with the required documents, either going online, starting the process, or just going into the office with the docs. And she's going to change her license status from regular or non-compliant, non-federally compliant, to the Real ID, which is federally compliant, which is about $32 or $33. But then it doesn't change her expiration date, because remember, she expires in 2023. So when she gets her new license in the mail and it's going to have that bear, it's still going to expire in 2023. Okay, so she's going to have to go back and just renew her license, whatever the process is in 2023. So it's not going to change your expiration date if you choose to go in and convert from what you have now to the Real ID. It won't change the expiration date unless it's time for your renewal. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, I don't see, for me personally, I don't see any reason to get the Real ID. I'm not going to plan to travel. I have a passport.
Right.
It's good for a few more years, so we'll just, probably
Yeah.
good for longer than I am.
I think you'll be here for a very long time. I can see it in your eyes.
Oh,
I think
thank
you're
you.
fine. I think you're fine, and that's a good assessment. It's just personal preference. Some people want both. I would say with what's all going on right now, you're absolutely right in your situation. You have a current passport. I wouldn't go into the DMV unnecessarily, especially if you have no plans to travel. But if you do, you have a means to use your passport, so you're okay. So everyone, it can do it however fits you. I just want to make sure you know what you need to do it. You can start the process online. If you start the process online for Real ID, whether it's your license or your identification card, you do still have to go in person with the documents to finish the process. Okay, just want to make sure we're clear. For those of you who may not be driving or that, like I said, have an ID card, the DMV offers our senior identification card for those that are 62 and older for free. We always have. And it can also be the Real ID status if you like. It is still free. You're still required to go in, take the necessary documents, and or start the process online. Same thing goes. It'll just be an identification card, which is of course not for driving. Okay, it still will be recognized going through the airport, military bases or federal buildings. It's just an identification card versus a driver's license. And I think sometimes we forget a driver's license is a type of identification card, but it allows you to drive, okay? So both of those are types of IDs. Any questions on the senior ID?
I did have, I vaguely remember they said there was a longer expiration date if you were a senior.
Senior IDs are good for 8 years. You're right. The regular ID for under 62 is 6 years. A senior ID is 8 years. So every 8th birthday is when that one would expire for you. Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I found out about it too late. They had already done the shorter version of it for me. But,
Oh, okay.
you know, I think some of the lady that told me about it was processing somebody else's, and she said, "Oh yeah, you can get 8 years." I go, "Well, why didn't they give me 8 years?"
Yeah, if your birthday, if you're 60, now some people, even though they're 62 or older, they don't want the senior label on the ID card. So they may pay just to get a regular ID, but they should at least advise you so you'll know that, because again, it's free. It's not a payment for that. So sorry that happened. And that's what I'm here for, to make sure you all have the right information, hopefully that's helpful to navigate through the DMV. Appointments are available once again online or by calling our 800 number. If you have access to using the computer, I would say, you know, try to make your appointment online if you have to go into an office. If you don't have to go into the DMV office right now, I wouldn't go into the DMV office right now. We are practicing social distancing, and we're wearing masks. You know, the public is required to wear masks. You may see a group of people outside and say, "Oh my gosh, it's really crowded." But just remember and keep in mind, we are practicing social distancing. And so we only have a limited number of people in the office at a time. So that means people are waiting outside, but there are ways for them to text you. So you don't have to just stand outside with the crowd. You can wait in your car. They will text you when it's time for you to come into the office. So we're doing our best to be in tune with technology so that, you know, especially during this time, we're keeping you as safe as possible. Okay, which is of course why we are allowing you all to renew online and by mail, when usually the requirement at 70 and older is to come into an office. So we're doing what we can to make sure that your identification process is not interrupted, so that you can continue with life, whatever this normal is that we're living in right now for the past year, and you still have your identification. Okay. Any questions? Other questions? We're okay with the documents that we need to bring in for real ID. We understand it's not tricky, but it's really important, because again, I see this all the time with my mature drivers that, okay, well, I found out this was not this date, or this was not the name, or it was spelled incorrectly. So look at your documents closely. Sometimes we get these documents and we just don't look at them because what we were told is what we were told. And now with this extra security, they're going with the letter of what's on that identity document. Okay. Any other DMV questions you want me to answer that I did not get to, or you want to discuss?
Can I assume that much of this information is also online, all the documents you need and all that kind of thing?
It absolutely is online. There is a real ID flyer, and I'll email that to Mr. April as well, so that he can share that with you. And it tells you all of the documents. I'll kind of hold it up. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but it's just something like this, and it just shows you exactly what's needed in each category. So it makes it really easy for you. And I'll make sure Mr. April gets this to share with you all. Okay.
I'll be in touch with Mr. April.
Hello, I have a question.
Sure.
I just updated my address with the DMV. How do I get a new license, a new real ID with the new address?
Okay, so that's a good question. So when you have a change of address, you cannot renew your license and change your address at the same time. So you have to create an account, do the change of address, wait until it's updated, takes a few days when you do it online. Then when you want to get a license, an actual license with the real, with the correct address, now when you apply for your license, whether it's a renewal or a real ID, that address should now be on your license. It's on the record. So Ms. Brandon, if you want to call me, I can always look at the record to verify that it is the address you need it to be. And then once you apply for your real ID, you'll know this is the correct address.
But I just keep the the license I currently have with the old address until it comes up for renewal, really.
Well, yeah, because it's changed in the system, but if you want the physical license that you now have to have the new address, you would have to go on and apply for what's called a duplicate. If it's not time for your renewal, but you want that on the actual address, on the actual license, then yeah, you have to go in and pay for a duplicate. But it's usually updated in the system, and then we can mail you a card where it's stamped, and then you write your new address, and you just kind of keep it with to the back of your license. So
Okay.
you've got a couple options. It's not necessary, but some people like that information updated. I'm one of those persons. If I change my address, I want it to reflect, but you don't have to. It's personal preference.
All right. Thanks for your help.
You're welcome. So those are some other transactions that usually you couldn't do online, but now you can. A change of address, getting a duplicate license or ID card, but it's just that for security purposes, we will not allow you to change your address and request the duplicate in one transaction. So if you have to change your address, you're going to change your address, wait a few days until it's updated, and then you're going to go in and renew the license on the online system. Okay? If you're ready for renewal.
I had a question about having to take the driving test. When is a senior required to take the driving test?
So anyone who's licensed, not just seniors, is required to take a driving test when there's a vision issue. So let's say you come in to renew your license, whether you're a senior, sometimes it's not being a senior. When you have to take the vision test, we're looking for 20/40, 20/40, and at least 20/70. So if you don't meet those vision standards, we'll give you that report of vision exam that has to be completed by your eye doctor. And then you have to bring it back to us. So we're looking for the clinical measurements by the doctor. We're looking for what is the diagnosis? What's the treatment plan? Is it progressive? If it meets a certain criteria and you're still below our vision standard of 20/40, 20/40, 20/70, you'll be requested or required to take a driving test. That's when a drive test is required, when there's a vision issue.
And then when I was still working, we sometimes had to fill out this request for a driver re-examination form for seniors we felt were unsafe on the road.
Yeah.
How does that process work?
Okay, were you law enforcement?
No, a social worker.
Okay. So the request for reexamination of driver, that is something that can be completed by law enforcement, social workers, court officiants. And that is something, it's not a citation, but it is something that says, I know Tressa Thompson and she is not safe to drive because, and it may have my medical issues or some observations that family or friends have observed about me as far as my driving. And then that is submitted to the Department of Motor Vehicles Driver Safety Branch. And then we will reach out to you by mail and say, hey, Tressa, we received this information. We need you to submit a medical form and have an appointment with us. And if they mail the medical out today, it may be due by May 10th. It'll give you about 21 days to get that medical completed by your doctor and turned back in. And it'll say if your medical is not completed and turned in by May 10th, your license is suspended May 11th. So we give you about 20 days. If we don't get it by that due date, your license goes into suspension the next day. And it's not because I have a medical condition. It's because I didn't comply with the department. And we are under that authority with the vehicle code statute. So that's what gives us the authority to suspend the license if you don't reply. So sometimes, a lot of times, our seniors will come to us via a request for regular reexamination of driver by law enforcement. And that is because the law enforcement officer will, observe some driving that they deem to be pretty negligible or very dangerous. And then that's how we will get a lot of the seniors on that process. Social workers, doctors are mandated reporters. So if you have a medical condition, it doesn't matter the age. Any doctor with a patient that he or she feels has a condition that may affect their ability to drive safely is supposed to report. They're mandated to report. And I'll give you an example because some people say, well, that's threatening. It's not. Even though as much as you love the DMV, I know it's everyone's favorite agency, but you don't get to see us that often, right? When you get a license, you get it for 5 years. If you drive well and you don't have any tickets, we'll give you another 5 years. So that's 10. If you continue with a good driving record, you get another 5 years. That's 15. You may not come into the DMV for 20 something years almost, right? Sometimes we'll say, hey, well, you got a good record. We haven't seen you in 15 years. Let us test your vision, or come take a new picture, update your thumbprint. But we're not testing you, right? Has anyone had that experience with the DMV? You haven't been there for a very long time. And then I understand once you hit 70, you have to come in every 5 years for that written and vision, but we haven't seen you in a very long time, generally, if you have a good driving record. So at some point, as we age gracefully, right, things do change a little bit. Number one, our vision changes. Usually something simple, glasses. Unfortunately, there are more serious conditions where it may require surgery, or it really affects your vision and how you're seeing in one or both eyes. And so then we have to see you and check up on you to verify, hey, not only are you knowing the rules of the road, but how's your vision? So these things are very necessary to work with other agencies, doctors included, to verify what's going on with someone's health. Another way is self-reporting. When we renew our driver's license, we're asked a few questions on our renewal notices. Most people tell me, I don't remember answering those questions. They're so quick, and we're so happy to mail that check-in. We answer them, I think, just really fast, but it asks you, do you have any medical conditions? Have you been hospitalized in the last 3 to 5 years? Do you take any medications? So those should be answered truthfully, because you are signing this under the penalty of perjury. Okay, so we need to have the information about your health. And I'll give you another example. What if I have a condition, no fault of my own, this is just something I have, and I'm out there driving with you and your loved ones, but my vision's not up to par, or my condition is not up to par. I'm not taking my medication, which maybe I'm going to have a seizure, or my sugar levels are going to go up or down. And I'm in your neck of the woods driving with your loved ones. Would you want me out there? No. So a lot of times what I notice is that we give ourselves a little bit more leniency before we give others that leniency. So DMV is here to kind of say, we want everyone to be safe. We're here for all of traffic safety, regardless of age. If we get something, we have to investigate, whether it's from an officer, a social worker, or a doctor. We're going to reach out to you and investigate. Another thing is sometimes people want to report their family members, but they don't want them to know it's them reporting the family member. That's fair, right? They care about us. And so we don't take anonymous referrals, but they can request confidentiality. I'm going to pick on you, Mr. April. So someone brings you in, maybe it's a loved one. They bring you in to the DMV. They may be the very person that reported you. We can't tell you that. And we are, obligated to keep their confidentiality, and that's that. But we do have to investigate. Okay. So usually our loved ones, our friends, they know about us. They know that we have a condition, or they know that things haven't been right and there's some extra bumps and bruises on those vehicles that they're worried about. So sometimes, sometimes it's very valid. Sometimes that's the beginning of someone finding out, oh, well, you know what? I'm not seeing as great as I thought I was. By the time we're squinting, our body's compensating. We've already been having a hard time, but the way our brains are set up, usually there's a compensation with vision. Okay. So by the time we're doing this, our body's already been kicking in, trying to help us to see better and to, be clear. So those are just things to think about. We want everyone to be safe for all of us. Any other questions or comments? What about disabled persons placards? That's another one that's usually a hot topic.
Yeah, that's a hot topic.
That's a hot topic. So disabled persons placards are issued to those persons that gets an application completed by the doctor. So number one thing, DMV does not determine if you qualify for a placard. The doctor does that. Okay, we're not doctors. But there is an application that your doctor fills out on your behalf regarding your medical condition, and the doctor will let us know if it's a permanent condition. If it's a permanent condition and it fits within the criteria, we're going to issue you a blue permanent placard. that you will get every 2 years. You don't have to do anything to renew it. I think coming up though in the next year or two, there will be a certification process that right before your placard expires, you'll get something, you'll sign off to say, yes, I'm still with this condition, still driving, I need it, or still riding, because you don't have to have a license to have a placard. But right now, you don't really do anything to get it. You get it right before June, I believe. It expires every 2 years. So that's it. But DMV does not determine if you get the placard. That is up to your doctor. So if we deny the placard, it's because the doctor says this person does not have a permanent disability. Okay. That is free. There's no fee for a placard. Okay. There is another type of placard, which is a temporary placard. It is red in color. So let's say I break my leg, something temporary that I'm going to heal from. Again, the doctor still has to fill out the form indicating I have a temporary disability. It goes to the DMV. They will send me the red placard. $6 for the placard. It's temporary. It's red in color. This is my number one thing for you all to remember. If you have a placard or you know someone that has a placard. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
Throw away the old placards. Please don't keep them. We're not going to audit you and ask you to send us a photo of every placard we've ever mailed you. I promise you, we don't need them, and you don't either, because it gets confusing. And then you take that old placard and put it up, and then you get a ticket because it's expired. So don't keep the old placards. It gets in the way. I tell my own grandmother this, I have this one. I said, throw it away. It's no good anymore. Because when I take you somewhere, you're giving me the wrong placard and I'm going to get a ticket, right? So don't keep the old ones. As soon as you get the new one, get rid of the old one. It's of no value to anyone. When you're using your placard, it is for parking, not driving. So the placard should not be hanging there when you're driving down the street. That's not what it's for. It is for parking, okay? So that you can secure a parking spot closer to wherever you're going. So it alleviates, the walk or whatever's taxing on your medical or physical condition. Okay, that's what the placard is designed for. There are also disabled person plates that are affixed to the vehicle. The plates are free, but you still have to pay for that little registration tag. But the actual plate, if you want a disabled person's plate, that is free. Okay, but you still pay for the tag, which is considered the registration. And you can have both. You can have a placard and a plate. Because what if I'm going to ride with Miss Bell and she doesn't have a placard, and I have a disability and my plate is on my car. Well, I want to take that mobile placard and put it in her car when we park because I still have a disability because I'm a passenger, right? You don't have to have a license to have a placard. You do have to have a vehicle with your name on the registration, however, if you want a disabled plate. So far, so good? Mm-hmm. Okay. I had a call yesterday with a lady, and she wanted to know, she was advised to call me to get her curb painted blue in front of her home. Have you ever been on a residential street and the curb is blue for disabled persons parking? Some people get that in front of their homes. If you do get that in front of your home, DMV was not going to come out and paint your curb. That is a city or Department of Transportation issue, not DMV. It took me about 10 minutes to explain that to her. She was just smitten with the other person that referred her to me. And she said she was referred to me. I must do that. I just don't do that. That is city. That is a whole program designed by the city. They have to have an engineer come out. They look at your driveway. They measure. They do a lot of different things before they can okay the process. And if they do paint the curb blue in front of your house, guess what? It's not just for you. Anyone that has a placard or a plate that's disabled or, disabled person can park there. So I want to make sure that's clear. It is not just going to be for you to park, even though it's in front of your house. We can't discriminate against other persons that have disabilities that may need that park. Okay, so I just want to make sure that's clear if it ever comes up. I do have a person at the city of LA that is over that program. And I'm sure you're in Pasadena, probably she would have maybe a contact in your area if necessary. So I do have that information, okay? Any other questions on the placard?
Yeah, it's kind of slightly abused.
It is. And DMV, we got in a lot of trouble for that. And so that's why we had to change the process. And I mentioned that certification in the next year or so. A lot of persons are deceased and we're still sending out placards. They're abused. And so that's another thing. You can't share your placard, even if it's your spouse, your caretaker, your grandchild, your child, they have to get their own. If they have to have a placard, they have to use it. It's not enough to say, well, my caretaker went to get my medication. That person doesn't have the disability. It's only for the person that it's assigned to. Remember, your doctor is certifying that this is my disability. So I can't transfer my placard to Wayne because he needs to go to the doctor and he doesn't feel good that day, or he's going to pick up my medicine. That's not what it's for. They're going to give him a citation. Then they're going to take my placard.
Now, if the police stop somebody with a placard, how do they know the placard belongs to somebody in the car?
Very good question. So the placard is issued, right? And it comes with what's called an identification card, which kind of looks like a car registration. And it's going to have my name, my placard number. And that placard number should match the placard that's up in the vehicle. And it belongs, and it should have my name, like I said. So that is how they can determine if the placard belongs to you. That's another thing that a lot of people forget about or they don't realize. When you get your placard in the mail, it's going to have that piece of paper inside. A lot of people throw it away. They think it's the receipt. It's called an identification card. You're supposed to keep that with you on your person. So just as Mr. April said, if you're stopped because of the placard issue or approached by parking enforcement, there you go. See, Miss Bell, our star pupil. Thank you, Miss Bell.
I just got my new one, that's why I know. So you don't need to get one if you go for a ride with me.
Thank you.
Anyway, this is what it looks like.
Very good. So see, it's called a registration card, but it's a piece of paper on DMV paper, kind of looks like your car registration. That is how it's going to determine this placard belongs to this person because it's going to have the same information. Okay. So that's why it's important to throw away the old placards, not to share your placard, because then you have to petition to get it back. You know, if I let someone use my placard and they get it taken, that's it for me. Now, how am I going to park and use that service? I can't. Another thing is another suggestion that I've learned: when you use valet, get your car washed, put your placard up. If you can take it out or lock it in the glove box, that's when they come up missing. And then you don't even realize it's gone. Valet won't need your parking placard. They can't use it, right? Parking, washing the car, they don't need it either. I strongly suggest taking it out of the vehicle or locking it in the glove box. And when you get out, make that the first thing you do is to get it back out, to put it in your sight so that you remember to use it. But that's when they come up missing. And then people say, oh, I did go to the car wash. And that's when the next day I couldn't find it. Some people do bad things, unfortunately. You cannot buy a placard at the grocery store in the parking lot. If anyone approaches you with oh, you want to get a placard? That is one of the few things that the DMV gives you for free. Get it from us. Make sure it's legitimate. Okay. You cannot buy that anywhere else except for free at the DMV with the proper paperwork. Okay.
Now, I have a friend that just replaced his when he lost it. How many times do you replace a lost one? Because somebody could just keep reporting a lost.
I don't think there's a number on it. You know, if it's flagged like for fraud or something, they may reach out and ask more questions, but there's no number that I'm aware of for replacement.
Yeah.
No number. It may flag you though. It may get a little suspicious, but no number at this time. Any other questions on the placard? Are we okay with that?
I think so. Don't need it yet.
I almost need it. I've been having some issues with my knee. I tell you, I just said, I'm going to just keep walking. Maybe that'll be more helpful. So any other DMV related questions that you want me to go over? Mr. April, is there anything that you want me to discuss that I missed?
Trying to think. I think we've covered.
So we covered real ID. We covered renewal going on right now in this time of COVID. I just want to make sure I'm clear and reiterate. March of 2020, if your license expired throughout the COVID emergency, which is right now, I don't know when the end of this emergency or when this emergency will end. So if you have a renewal notice and you want to take advantage of renewing right now without testing, go ahead and get that done. because I don't know when the governor's going to say we're going to go back to business as usual. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be something just new because of COVID, maybe kind of grandfathered in. You know, this is all new for everyone. So if you want to take advantage of that without going into an office to renew right now for safety reasons, go ahead and get your renewal done. If you have your notice, get that done. Or if you've expired March of 2020 and thereafter, go ahead and get it done. Okay.
So,
And when you renew, using the online method, you're going to get a 5-year license, online or by mail. It's a renewal, not an extension, a renewal. Go ahead, Mr. April.
no, I was just, I'm trying to remember what I was just going to say.
I'm
In the meantime, my license expires in 2023.
Mhm.
Could I renew it now?
No,
Oh,
nothing to renew because you don't expire till 2023. So you can usually renew your license about 4 months before your birthday.
Yeah. No, does anybody else have any questions?
I hope this
No,
was
but
helpful.
I think you've done a terrific job. Absolutely terrific. It's
She's
been-
my new best friend. Thank you, Miss Bell. Thank you.
She's our raider.
I thank you all for showing up. I'll go ahead and give you my phone number and you can get it from Mr. April as well. I'm at 310-615-3552. And I'll repeat, 310-615-3552. So if you have more personal questions you need to ask me after this or in the future, feel free to ask me. We do also have the Senior Guide for Safe Driving publication that's available to you. This is not the booklet for studying, but this is the book to kind of cover what we talked about, the aging process and the changes and how to remain safe. If you want to take a booklet, even though you may not test this year, just to keep aware of the rules of the road, we have the 2020 California book. So these are the rules of the road, okay? This is just the publication for seniors about the aging process, and our program is also in this booklet with my phone number. So if you want any of the publications, you can always call me. I will mail them, and they're available on our website as well. Okay?
Okay, we'll have to have you back for a post-pandemic update.
Yeah.
That I agree, because I would like to know what's going to happen at that time too. So just give me an email and I'll be here.
What's your title?
My title is Senior Driver Ombudsman,
Okay,
Ombudswoman.
that's a mouthful.
It is. I agree.
Okay,
Any
well,
other questions?
I guess we'll wrap it up if nobody has any questions. Jeff, you didn't have any questions? No? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Tressa. And it was a very good presentation. And we'll be sure to, we'll have this on our website for other members who couldn't come at this particular time. And they can
Perfect.
be brought up to date.
Okay, thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.